But now, watch and listen closely as we introduce you to 6 courageous and inspiring heroes, each dedicating their lives to saving our planet. And China is where our next hero's ambitions are focused. Can one 16-year-old American change a nation of 1.3 billion people?
Well, I was just going to say that in the elections...
In this California classroom, Taylor Francis might blend in as a typical high school junior.
And I guess what they were concerned about is what happens if a war comes along and will this tie our hands?
And while Taylor is a top student in class,
Hi, Mr. Wadley.
Okay, have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
it's when he leaves his own classroom that he truly stands out. That is when the student becomes the teacher for thousands of his fellow teens.
My name's Taylor Francis. I'm a 16-year-old, so I'm in high school like you guys. And I'm really thrilled to be here at Lowell. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about global warming, about the climate crisis, because it is both the biggest problem and the biggest opportunity that all of us are going to face in our lives as a generation.
It all started just 2 years ago when a then 14-year-old Taylor saw Al Gore's Oscar-winning documentary, An Inconvenient Truth.
The most vulnerable part of the Earth's ecological system is the atmosphere.
It was Taylor's turning point. Suddenly his eyes were open to the threat of global warming. So he traveled to Tennessee to become the youngest person to train directly with Al Gore's Climate Project, his nonprofit charged with public awareness and environmental education. Taylor created a Gore-style PowerPoint lecture aimed directly at his peers, the audience he knew best. Since then, Taylor has presented his global warming warning to over 20,000 teens in classrooms and auditoriums.
Since you know more than most your age, do you have a lot of fear about what's going to happen in this world?
If we do not act, my generation will inherit a planet that is fundamentally different. I think we're going to see the danger of lots of political conflicts caused by resource wars.
Taylor's presentation is a cautionary lesson about carbon emissions, and while he's glad to share what he's learned with American students, he is now on a crusade to educate an even larger audience.
I'm very happy to be here in Shanghai and excited to talk to you today about global warming.
Taylor took his presentation all the way to China, the nation that recently passed the U.S. as the world's top emitter of greenhouse gas. In fact, 20 of the top 30 cities with the worst air quality in the world are in China, a result of rapid urbanization and dramatically increased coal dependence.
In China, are your generation, these what I call kids, are they also trying to convince their parents about this?
Yes, and the thing that I found, though, is that in the U.S., you can talk a lot about what individuals can do, because there's so much that we can do. There's so many areas that we're wasting. In China, individuals are actually not wasting that much energy. The bigger area is business, the industrial sector, and government policy. So the key question there is, can youth begin to influence those areas? And I hope that they can.
Making the challenge greater is China's exemption in the Kyoto Protocol, the United Nations agreement to curb emissions.
If we don't become very efficient in what we're doing in terms of energy, it would be almost impossible, wouldn't it, to convince China
Yes.
to do that instead?
Absolutely. The only way that China's going to go green is if we go green first, if we lead the way.
Greener, cleaner, faster, stronger.
I met with Taylor as he took his message to Washington along with 12,000 other young people. They converged on the Capitol for Power Shift, a youth rally for environmental action.
This is just massive, you know, just the number of kids here.
It's incredible.
I wouldn't call them kids, should I?
Young people.
The young people, right, that's a lot better.
我的粮是美国的，我的心是中国的。
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Continuing his battle cry for more attention to China, Taylor hosted a group of Chinese students at the convention.
Are we going to work together, our two countries together eventually on this?
Yeah, I think so. What the two countries should do is to cooperate with each other in face of the climate change, because no one can avoid this problem.
As young people, this is our problem.
For Taylor's peers, his words have power, not just because of his message, but because of the messenger.
I think when teenagers hear it coming from a teenager, it's easier to think, oh wow, if he can do it, then so can we.
The really promising thing is called a power purchase agreement.
It's
where
after
you
the
don't own
lecture
panels,
that
you
the
don't
words
own
of
the
one
panels up
become
front.
the actions of many.
Taylor handed out a piece of paper, and that actually had everything that teenagers can do: cut back on meat consumption, use a compost, drive less or take the bus, ride a bike, carpool.
So I hope you guys realize that global warming is not just about polar bears. It's not just about ice. This is about us. So to
His
go
power
green,
of
we need to
persuasion
also
comes as no surprise to the family and friends who know him best. It's especially moving for his mother, Bonnie.
I've probably been to like 30 of these talks by now, and most of the time they still bring tears to my eyes.
We know that he's going to be successful. I would give him my vote tomorrow for whatever office he's going to run for.
With all his maturity and success, it's often hard to remember that he's still just a teenager.
What are you going to do now? What's your next?
Well, the next thing is gotta go home and take a physics test on Monday, so that's the first immediate challenge.
Taylor is touching the future by inspiring a new generation.
I view my job as trying to make sure that we take the right action now so that tomorrow my generation lives in a world that is still filled with opportunity.
Mahatma Gandhi once said that you must be the change you wish to see in the world. The time is now. It's up to us. It's up to us to take our own future into our own hands today. I hope you'll join me. Thank you very much.
Taylor says he takes some comfort knowing that the two biggest emitters of greenhouse gas are serious about changing their ways. Just in the field of wind energy, the United States is now the largest wind producer, and China the largest wind turbine producer. In fact, China is the leading renewable energy producer in the world.